about F1, the movie. Sean, tell us what this is about.
Okay, well, there's not really a lot to say story-wise because there's not a huge amount of story to it.
I feel like the title of this film is the plot.
It is the plot.
Broadly
So,
speaking, yes.
and I'm just going to say one thing now before anything else that Brad Pitt, I don't care what anyone says, has got to be Robert Redford's son.
You say this
I
every
know.
time we talk about Brad Pitt.
Every time I talk about Brad Pitt, and I love him, and I think he's great, and he's good in this. So basically, the story, quick story, he's a driver that did have a chance of going somewhere, had a bit of an accident, sort of, and then became a bit of a drifter. Lives in a camper van, goes and does all these different events like Daytona and stuff. And then he gets called. His mate comes up from way back and says, "Look, I want you to drive Formula One because my company's not doing so well." And of course, in the company, one of the drivers, he's a young, up and coming, shall we say, Willie Beaumont from Any Given Sunday type of thing. This really, really reminded me of Any Given Sunday so much.
Well, I think, okay, without watching this film, I feel like this film is going to follow the sports movie playbook to the sports movie crowd pleasing playbook to the numbers. So it's played by Damson Idris. He's black. He's probably the only black driver in there. He's British.
He is not the only black driver in there because it has real drivers in it.
Oh, so Lewis Hamilton shows up.
There is a lot of cameos.
Yes.
I've seen the poster and
I
I saw Max Verstappen, but I didn't see Lewis Hamilton, so I wasn't sure if there was going to be
and Lewis Hamilton's dog
Rocco.
has his own line in the credits.
I'll say this really quick and then I'll let Holly get on. So to me, right, I've never ever been a fan of racing car movies. Yeah, I've never been. I don't get Formula One. It's something that's never really been on my radar. I mean, I like sports, but the driving sports, I'm not so keen on. But I really got into this one. I think it reminded me of, I did see a film years ago called Le Mans with Steve McQueen, and I watched a James Garner film called Grand Prix.
Oh yeah.
The one with what was the one, the Henson one with about James Hunt?
Yeah, that's Rush.
Rush.
I thought that was quite good.
Yeah. So, but so they had the split screen a couple of times, not so much, and there was a few nods. There was a few nods to the. But yeah, I mean, it was exciting. I was excited, man. I was those racing. I was like, I can't believe this. And Holly seeing it in IMAX must have been out of this world.
It was
so
spectacular. Good in the IMAX. I mean, just the
cinema.
Cinema buddy Steph and I went as per usual, and she's a big F1 fan. So it was automatically right at the top of her list, and to see it in IMAX as well, it was superb. I was expecting to find nail marks in my hands at the end of it because it was so tense, and just the feeling of the movement and
but for me, it really picked up on how technical Formula One is.
Yes.
And the bit like with this, it goes, why isn't he leaving the pits? Why isn't he leaving the pits? Why isn't he leaving the pits? And then you suddenly realise the reason why he's waited to come out of the pit so it can help someone else. But
it's way more than just driving
with
fast.
The tyres. Yeah, it's way more than much driving. They say we need a tenth off of you. We need a tenth of a second off you. And it is a really fast-paced action film. And as I say, I loved Any Given Sunday, and it really, really reminded me. It went along these lines that even if you're not a Formula One fan or a racing car fan, this captured you enough. Yeah. So.
All right.
What was the film with Christian Bale? That was another racing car film. Sorry, I was just.
That was Ford versus Ferrari.
Yes.
It was called Le Mans 66, depending on what country you were in.
I think he was. I think he was saying
also loved
dude with the dog. They actually trained Brad Pitt for a little while into the Silverstone circuit. So.
Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis Hamilton, yeah. So, and I mean, there are, much the same as in Any Given Sunday or some of these other ones, there were cameos by, I mean, I don't know, I've got no idea who these Formula One people would be, but you obviously know because they're not professional actors, they're obviously, and they come up and like tap them on the shoulders and say, well done.
So wait, you're watching the film where you're like, okay, that guy has a close-up. He's a terrible actor. Must be a Formula One driver.
You've got it. Yeah, you got it, Tony.
It's like, why are they giving him so much screen time? Oh, Formula One driver, terrible actor.
Yeah, or owners or whatever, So yeah. I mean, but it's definitely all there. But yeah, no, this was a surprising watch.
It's a bit like when they did Ted Lasso, when Pep Guardiola showed up in Ted Lasso, and you're like, if you didn't know anything about football, you'd be like, who the hell is this guy? He can't act.
Like, he is here for a reason.
Yeah,
it's
but if you're not into those sports, it is. I think I've spoken to lots of people that have actually seen. I know this is American football, and they've seen Any Given Sunday, and even though they don't like the sport, they thought the film's really, really good.
Yeah. Okay, so quick question: as an F1 fan with you, Hollywood cinema buddy Steph, did she say, okay, this actually works, or was she kind of like, oh, hang on a second, that would never happen? Because
she loved it, absolutely loved it.
Because one of the big problems is that, believe it or not, Brad Pitt is 61 years old.
Yeah, I think we suspended some elements of disbelief on that.
And
I'll tell you what, I'm not that way, but for a man of 60 odd, he's in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
The other driver's mum says, oh, he's not that old.
Yeah, then I agree with you on that with Brad, but it's like the idea that of a 61-year-old driving an F1 car is a little bit.
It is preposterous.
It is.
But it didn't really matter. The story was I think the story
especially if and don't tell anyone, but especially if this follows the sort of like sports film playbook to the letter and they end up winning, because
couldn't possibly comment,
especially if they end up winning. I mean, that's feel good but totally unrealistic, because
they normally win or die, don't they? It's one of those things.
The things from the playbook.
Don't you think, I'm going to say again, don't you think Brad Pitt is Robert Redford?
This is the hill that Sean will die on. Brad Pitt is Robert Redford's son. All right. Okay, cool. So, how many stars would you give F1, the movie?
Well, this was a mighty surprise for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I went in, I think, about 4:30, came in about 7:30. It did not seem that the film was that long, so it was going to get 4 from me for this one.
I actually enjoyed it so much, so I'm going to give it a 5. It brought me such. Is it a 5-worthy script? Probably not. Is it 5-worthy for everything else it does? Yes. It is a joyous bit of cinematography.
You know, I in my head, and if this is okay with you, Holly, I am going to couch that. I'm going to sort of like slightly adapt that and say it is I think a 5-star watching experience, but possibly not a 5-star film.
Yes. Yes, I think that's exactly it. It is a 5-star watching experience, and I will very happily watch it again.
Yeah, just one more thing I want to say about that is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who directed Top Gun Maverick. So essentially, this guy knows how to put a thrilling sequence together, because his track record now is becoming impossible to ignore. All right, cool. Yes. Now let's go
very
over
fast things.
Very fast
thrilling
things.
Sequence of very fast things.
Yes, with aging action stars who should know better.